My dad, Paul Sumner, died in the town where he was born, Sapulpa, Oklahoma. He passed at age 68 from pancreatic cancer 1 month after I began work as your choir director here in January of 1998. I will never forget, as he relished a chocolate creamsicle, my father casting his last long look at me. We both had plenty to say, but neither of us could. His eyes spoke volumes, probably thoughts he had long since been wanting to share. I figure with most families, the relationship dynamic over time adjusts a little, but doesn't change all that much. Maybe we comfortably remain who we were, regardless of how much life we had since lived. This is my attempt to show just how much the memory of my father now resonates with me. His mom and dad were cold and guarded. Their norm was not sharing loving words nor acts of affection. I recall the only parental rift in all the time I bore witness was Mom's frustration with the in-laws. Even though she strongly felt their influence on Dad, I sensed he had evolved, perhaps being a middle child into a more open Sumner, more self-aware and kind. Growing up, they called him Pepper. Dad started a diary the day before my birth, following with a year of daily entries confirming how prized his firstborn was. Other than a poetic phase later, I'm unaware of any other personal writing until a letter to Mom was discovered and read after his death. When he was young, Pepper was allowed a year of piano lessons from a Miss Cantrell. And much later, when I turned 5, the year of her death, a very happy father purchased the same Steinway Grand on which he had played as a child for $250 and benched me with lessons of my own. Many have heard me crow about how lucky growing up in Sapulpa was if you were a singer, instrumentalist, or dancer even in the 60s and 70s. But it took me until the new millennium to realize my luck in fathers. During our shared lives, I never pictured him as a strong presence. Mother was the one I looked up to, one whose words I marked. Being a closeted queer son, I needed a strong role model to help guide me down the narrow, if not straight, path. I needed to feel unconditional love. She had lived through challenges, was thoughtful, intelligent, 7 years older than my father, tuberculosis, World War II. And I saw the needed contrast to my father in her. Even before she passed 5 years after Dad, I often wondered what sort of life she would have had if born later. Would she have married? What career would she have landed? Where would she have ended up? Vivian was a Bay Area Rosie the Riveter right after high school, and once you've tasted life outside Oklahoma, well, who will know? But Dad tapped into this energy of mine. He taught me how to type using an Underwood at age 8. I proceeded to retype the World Book Encyclopedia he purchased for us when I was 10. He got me a job at the local movie theater in the 8th grade, where he had formerly worked as an usher. My love for classic film, thank you, Dad. Before the 10th grade, my 80 words a minute and some nepotism led me to work all the different office jobs at Leeway Motor Freight in Tulsa, downtown Tulsa. Dad was the office manager and Mom worked nights. I took over for everyone while they enjoyed summer vacations. I had to join the Teamsters Union, and in 1969 was paid over $8 an hour. Dad, in phases, gave us some art, some gardening. Some of you remember Columbia House Record Club. He entertained the locals on Halloween, creating scary scenes on our front porch. He drove my piano teacher and I to Oklahoma City to hear Van Cliburn perform. Side comment, can you imagine a classical pianist turning America upside down with a ticker tape parade today? Progress, they say, takes 2 steps forward, 1 step back. I wonder about that. I only get 1 soapbox today, sorry. Sorry. Anyway, his beefsteak tomatoes delighted an entire neighborhood. He even created the neighborhood, along with his younger brother, after investing in some land east of Sapulpa. He was thrilled to donate a strip of this land to Sapulpa's only non-Protestant faith, the Catholics, whose property abutted his. When my sister later married a Catholic, it gave both of my parents a great excuse to bid goodbye to their church to childhood, pass the exam or whatever, and get confirmed. Mom, originally a Methodist, could smoke outside with a Monsignor, wear comfortable clothing, sleep in if necessary. There was no pretense of being any sort of virtuous character, which she abhorred. Earlier in Dad's family church, the First Church of Christ, Sapulpa, my parents, after some notable absence, were paraded in front of the congregation and shamed. Watching this from an aisle seat in the pew, I will never forget. We never set foot in there again. Over the decades, Dad must have been proud of me, though his measured response to my returns from California usually began with, "Okay, Mark, what am I now no longer allowed to eat or say or think?" Even at 18, I successfully convinced my parents to vote for McGovern. In Oklahoma, that was saying something. It wasn't until after he passed and after my sister shared the letter he had written to Mom, a fuller picture of my father came into focus. He wrote an apology for not being the mate that he wanted to be and felt his wife deserved. There was nothing incriminating spelled out there, but what I picked up on was something that did not register with my sister, Mary. After fathering 4 of us and being a devoted husband for 47 years, and connecting some dots on what I observed over the past 45 years, I was convinced he had wrestled with his own sexual orientation. This plight, I've heard, was typical during these times and places. My own avoidance of coming out made me who I am. I did all I could to preserve some kind of extraordinary son image for my parents, which also was made easier because everyone appeared predisposed to avoid difficult truths. There is a deep and unspoken understanding that materializes in long periods we have together and apart, and I wonder, as he was clutching that chocolate creamsicle, if we both didn't in some way come out to each other in our final moment. It was a knowing look he gave me. I had never faced mortality to this degree before, and I too could say nothing. I was overwhelmed. I have now lived past the age of most all of the men on my father's side of the family, and while I am enjoying every day, like father, like son, I must seize them. Maybe I'll grow tomatoes, or figure out how to best nurture my new mate, or try my hand at some writing. I don't know. Purpose, maybe legacy, seems to be important to most of us, particularly fathers perhaps. Creating, inspiring, bestowing, hopefully something with at least a little shelf life. And what if, like so many did in Tulsa, what if my parents had discovered the Unitarian church there? Perhaps that last look he gave me would have been accompanied with a smile, shared healthy tears, abiding love, and a better understanding. What if I had stumbled upon you all a year or more earlier and could manifest inherent worth and dignity to my own father? Just the other day, I came up with something new, something I had never even thought of before, but the roots of which were planted in me during childhood thanks to my dad. A project which will probably take the rest of my days, but they'll be well spent, even if it's never read or seen until my gig is up. But more about all of that later. At least the dedication page is written.